ese hombre holding up the bottle. Look a little closer, cigar and Moscato. An actor in improv coming from Chicago. Outdoor, make way for Paul Vato.
All right. So how'd you get on Fireside? How did this all happen?
I don't know. Well, it was a natural. Wait a minute. I love this. You're going to interview me. And if the sound effects bother you, we can also mute them. So, Jeffrey, I found out about Fireside through Clubhouse. You know, when the pandemic was going on, I started getting into social audio, and the first platform I was on was something called Stereo, and spent a lot of time on Stereo, met a lot of cool people, and I was monetized on there until I wasn't verified, and then you couldn't be monetized. But like people like Jeff Ross were on there. And I forget who was on there, but a lot of, some stand-up comedians, and they were paying them to bring people onto the app and to work for so many hours, an hour or 2 or 3 a week or whatever, and go live for like 30 minutes at a time. And so then I kind of separated myself from there when I wasn't verified. And then I discovered Clubhouse, and Clubhouse has been amazing. I don't know if you're on there yet. It's also, social audio. Right. And then through there, I've discovered Fireside, and I was, kind of impressed by the founder, Fallon, and also, what's his name? Mark Cuban is one of the investors in the app. And then it's got a great community. But, I think I sent you a VIP link, so you were able to just jump on. But there is a vetting process, and we'd love to have you as a creator on the platform. You just have to, submit an application, what kind of show you would like to do. But it's great because everything is recorded. It stays here on video. We can record this way or horizontal. It lives on the platform, but then you can download it and then re-upload it as a podcast. So that's what I've been doing. You are episode 6 of season 2, and this is my first season really of doing it here on Fireside. But that's how I found out about Fireside, and I think it's great for, combine it with Anchor, which is from Spotify, which is a free platform. And, people have different theories on what platforms they should be using for podcasting. But this is great. I download it from here. I chop it up just a little bit and then re-upload it as a podcast. And then my co-host on Film Talk with AJ Dean, well, I'm the co-host. Her husband is helping me put all these shows up also on Roku. So I hope I guess I should have been asking people if I have their permission to do all this. So Jeffrey, do I have permission? Yeah, I figure if you're on here, you must have agreed to it somewhere in the terms. I don't, in the TOS terms of service. But that's how I found out about Fireside.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
But it is so good to reconnect and to see you. And of course, I'm a big fan of yours. I don't know how far back you'd like to go. I don't know how much time you have for me, but I mean, I want people to hear your story. It's such a exciting and fascinating story, and you're such a funny guy. Not to put you on the spot or anything like that, but I mean, you've had such a storied life that I thought it would be perfect for this platform, and people could come and get to know you and meet you. And then, of course, it's social audio and social media, so they can follow you, whatnot, and do all that. And I've seen that you've been doing a lot more stand-up lately as well. I don't know if that's, something new or not, but I was very excited. Are you still doing the Pocho Hour of Power?
Yeah, man. We, Lalo just won a big award. And so he's in D.C., for doing political commentary with his comics. And so he's been out there rubbing elbows, with all the politicians and, so it makes the show better. A lot more followers, gives it a lot more credence, right, for people to watch, because when you start getting awards, all of a sudden your show's important, right? You're still doing the same content, but since you're getting awards, it's it's been fun, man. Lalo's been
Is it true? Is it true that they doubled your salary?
Man, they tripled.
Wow.
So now
Three. Yeah.
I'm up to 300 times zero.
Perfect. That's still zero. Perfect.
Yes.
So for those of you wondering, we're talking about a show called Pocho Hour of Power, and it is on KPFK 90.7, I believe, FM in LA, Radio Pacifica. And I was one of the early hosts there with Lalo Alcaraz, who's a political cartoonist, and as Jeffrey mentioned, award-winning political cartoonist. He does a cartoon called La Cucaracha. And for the longest time, and I was always embarrassed to ask him, I didn't know if it was La Cucaracha or LA Cucaracha, but I just called it La Cucaracha. But so this is a show is it still every Friday at 4 p.m. or what time are you guys doing your show?
Yeah, it's every Friday at 3 o'clock now. 3 to 4.
3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So 3 p.m. Pacific, and you can listen to it online. And I was on there, and I've been on. I've called in before. I know that when I was in LA, going back and forth, I would pop into the show if I was around the studio on a Friday. And we had some great interviews with people from all walks of life. But I remember one of the big ones for us was the Blasters, which was like a rockabilly group. I don't know if you're familiar with Phil Dog and the Blasters, and that was an amazing interview. But to see him perform live in the studio was always a highlight of my week. So I'm sure you've had some great experiences there as well.
Man, we've interviewed the Emotions, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I've interviewed Dick Gregory, Paul Mooney, Sandra Bernhard, Cheech and Chong, Damon Wayans. God, it's you name it. We probably interviewed on there.
That's amazing. Now you've mentioned some names that I know that you are tied to. So were you instrumental in getting like Paul Mooney on the show or Damon? And I think there's a funny story about you and Damon Wayans. I can't remember. I know. Is there?
Yeah. Well, we had Sandra Bernhard on the show.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Sandra loved us. Sandra's like, I just want to do your show. I tell them when I come to LA, I have to do the Pocho Hour of Power. And so then we started talking about Paul. And she said, well, I haven't talked to Paul in 20 years. And she said, Paul discovered her. So the next year when she came on, I had Paul call in and surprise her.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, wow. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Sarah Bernhardt and of course of Paul Mooney. Man, I mean that was. What was your history with Paul Mooney? You opened for him, or were on the road with him, or?
Yeah, I toured with Paul, and that kind of when he passed away, kind of changed my whole act. What was crazy when I first met Paul, I was parking cars at the Comedy Store. And Paul was like, homie, you're doing too good a job. You got to bump some cars so Mitzi will move you inside. So I bumped some cars and Mitzi's like, oh, I got to move you inside. And Paul's like, see, homie, I told you.
That is an amazing impression too, Jeffrey. That is amazing. Wow. Okay. So you on purpose wrecked a few cars so you could get moved inside.
To move inside. So then the way I got to go on tour with him was he saw me do an impression of him on stage. And so
he was in the audience as you were doing an impression of him?
But I didn't know it. And so the joke was, I said, wouldn't it be funny if Paul Mooney hosted African American movie classics? Right? And Paul would be like, oh, homie, welcome to forget that. Welcome to nigga movie classics. What I hear in the back? Oh, homie, that's brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. So I do the whole joke. And at the last punchline in the joke is, I'll have to show my nigga movie classic, The Titanic. Why is it a nigga movie classic? Because all white people die and no niggas get blamed for it. All I hear in the back is, oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. So the next day I get a phone call. It's I said, hello. He goes, homie, Paul. I was like, what do you want, Paul? He said, I want you to go on tour with me. I said, well, how about if I don't want to go? He goes, homie, it will help your career. I was like, okay. So that's how it started, man.
Amazing. What year was this, if you don't mind sharing?
That's probably about 20 years ago, man. 15, 20 years ago.
Sure.
And then he told me something that I didn't get until he passed away. And we're doing Caroline's, we're doing Mooney at Midnight, and I'm getting ready to go on stage, and I'm looking at my notes, and he walks up to me and goes, homie, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm looking at my notes. He grabs them, tears them up, and goes, comedy spiritual. Now, good luck, and don't let me down. I was like, okay, man.
Ouch,
What?
man.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I didn't get it till he died. And it dawned on me. The universe, the environment is speaking to us, through us. We have to be open enough to hear that and speak their truth and not focus on the words that you're trying to focus on, because then you never hear what they're saying.
That is brilliant. And I mean, it's in the world of improv, we're like, oh, you have to be in the moment. Same with like even yoga. You have to be in the moment. And I think that's how we should maybe live our lives, where you're in the present. You're not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about the past. You're not worried about. And as an actor, I think it's the same thing. Like this should be the first time that we're reading these lines, not so worried about what's on that paper. That is brilliant.
Yes. And so you have to, as a comedian, we're the last people to speak for the environment as artists and to put the truth out there, what we see. But you can't speak it if you're focused on your words.
Right. How did you do that night without your notes?
Oh, I was horrible. And then the Dave Chappelle show, they did that bit I just did on the Chappelle show called Mooney Hosting the Classics.
That's right.
Where he come out with two white girls and comment on movies. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Well, that is a great bit, Jeff. That's fantastic. Where did you grow up, and then how did you end up? And then I guess we'll catch up how you wound up. But you grew up in LA, did you not, or in the suburbs? Are they called suburbs in LA?
Yeah, my childhood was very interesting because my father was a jazz musician, and he wrote "Unchain My Heart," played with Billie Holiday, played with Charlie Parker, part of the whole LA Central Avenue scene. And so it was him and my mom. My mom's white, my father's black. And they both got busted. They were heroin addicts. And I like to say in a joke that I was born a heroin baby. The way I knew was the umbilical cord was wrapped around my arm, and I was trying to get it up.
Only a comedian, only somebody's mind like ours is going to go in that direction. Like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Of course, that's brilliant.
So go ahead.
Is that what that song is? Unchain My Heart? That's my understanding.
Yeah, it's about heroin addiction.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. He wrote it with another guy in rehab. And they sold it to Ray.
Ah, okay.
And Ray was like, Bobby, we can't say it's about heroin, Bobby. We gotta say it's about a woman. And so yeah. And so when my mom got out, I would stay with my grandmother. And so she kidnapped me from my grandmother's house. And so I didn't see my father again until I was 32 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
And so then my mom was a booster, was a high-end booster. For the people that don't know, that means she was a thief.
but not just any kind of thief.
Well, she wasn't any kind of thief. Yeah. She was a high-end clothes, diamonds, furs thief. So she learned about racism early. So she would go in a store with two black women, like say in Beverly Hills, tell them she heard the black women say they're going to rip them off. Security would follow the black women, and she'd walk in and clean them out.
Brilliant.
So yeah. So then we'd have an after hours club up in the Hollywood Hills. So on a Lookout Mountain Drive. I actually went to Wonderland Elementary School up there. And so she would sell clothes to the Temptations, Four Tops, Marvin Gaye, Sammy Davis, Bugsy Siegel. And my dad would deal drugs. My stepfather would deal drugs. And they would send me away for the weekend with Papa Charles, who was a pimp, or their bodyguard, Black Joe, all these people. And that's how I lived until they got busted. And then I had to go move out with my aunt, who had 6 kids, out in Baldwin Park. And she married Raul Enriquez, so they were all Latino. And so that's who I lived with for a couple of years till my mom got out of prison. And that was a little gang area. So
were you in a gang?
Yeah. Well, you had no choice at that point. And then when my stepfather got out, my mom got out, and he was running drugs in and out of Mexico. So we'd have FBI raids at the house and, all kind of craziness, man. So that's how I got into sports. And then, from there I got a football scholarship to Washington State. So I never wanted to come home. And then I got drafted by Falcons. So I ended up doing that. And then when I got done, I started doing comedy.
So let's back up just a little bit. How long were you with the Falcons? So obviously you played in high school and then college, and then you get drafted by the Falcons.
Yeah.
And how long were you with the Falcon organization?
I was with the Falcons for 2 years.
2 years.
I was always an artist, right? And with my stable upbringing, I was, doing the right things when I was with the Falcons. So yeah.
So, yeah. But what was that like being? I mean, in the professional. I mean, that's at a whole other level. That's not just collegiate. I mean, you're at this whole other level of gameplay.
Yeah, you're the best of the best, right? You're the best. So the game's a lot quicker. People move a lot faster. It's very businesslike. People always say, what's the difference between playing in college and playing in pros? I said, in college, you might play because you want to look good for the girls. You want to play good for the university. You want to play because you're on TV, and you want to play because you want to get drafted. In the pros, you're playing because you got child support, you got a side chick, you got a mortgage.
That makes perfect sense.
That's the difference between the two. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. A whole other level. Now, so then how did you get into stand-up? Or do you remember like your first gig or your first gigs? And was it soon after you retired from the NFL?
Well, I wanted to act, right?
Okay.
And so I started studying acting. I started studying Stanislavski, the method, because my background, that was perfect for me, right? Made sense. But they didn't know what to do with a guy, my skin complexion back there and straight hair, because I had like Indian hair, right? Because my father he's Choctaw and African American. My grandmother's full Choctaw. So they didn't know what to do with me. And I was too nervous in front of the camera. So in my mind, I'm like, well, what's the best way to break nervousness? Well, do stand-up. And that's how I started doing stand-up, man.
Do you remember the first place that you performed? I mean, were they open mics, or did you like end up at the Comedy Store or the Improv or any of these LA institutions?
Well, I took a Judy Carter class.
Sure.
And everything she said not to do, I did. But it just gave me the opportunity to get on stage, which is all I really needed at that time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. And so who were you coming up with at that time? Like, who were your contemporaries?
Oh, man. Oh, my God. I was coming up with Eric Edwards, came up with Dr. Ken. I came up with Hal Sparks, came up with Chris Spencer, Sully McCullough. Just a bunch of guys, man, running around. And then, of course, when I went to the Comedy Store, once became there, then it was, it's everybody. It's Carlos Mencia, Eddie Griffin, T.K. Carter, Paul Mooney, Richard Pryor was at the end there. You just saw all the greats at that point.
Wow, that's what. So, like, what year would that have been then? Also
that was probably around what nine? It had to be late '90s.
Late night, sure, yeah. That sounds about right. Wow.
Yeah.
So of course, now I knew like Bobby Lee later on, and Paul Shore through Bobby Lee. So I would imagine then you might have also, I did a show. I did some episodes of Mad TV.
Right.
So from TV, that's where I met Bobby Lee, and I almost did the Carlos's show. I almost did Carlos Mencia, but I think I was trying to be funny, and he was walking. And the thing is, I'd met him before, and I thought he would recognize me, but it had been so long, I think, since he'd met me that he didn't, because I knew that we'd run into each other at like Bobby Lee's birthday parties and things like that. So he was walking this way, and I was walking this way, and I go, "Hey, man, do you know where they filmed the Carlos Mencia show?"
And he didn't like that at all.
I don't think he liked that. I realized later I probably should not have done that. Because he goes, yeah, it's back there, and kept walking. And I was going to go like, I was just kidding. But then I didn't. And I was like, I thought for sure I'd had it because Tommy Blacha was writing on the show. And I think he's the one that called me in. And then I just never heard back from him. I was like, I fucked up, But I got a story out of it, I guess. I don't know. But I don't think he liked that at all.
And Carlos, to me, I love Carlos. Carlos is a great guy. Carlos didn't do anything that everybody else wasn't doing at the Comedy Store. And that includes Joe Rogan and everybody else that's there.
Really? I mean, is it kind of like stories where there's only so many stories, but it's how you word them? Or what do you mean, like everybody does the same thing, as in you borrow from each other? Or, I mean, I don't want to say steal.
But... Oh, no, they stealing. So I'll be real with it.
Okay.
I would see Paul Mooney do his act. And then Carlos would do Paul Mooney's act, but make it Mexican. And then Eddie Griffin would do Paul's act, but act it out. And then Faison Love would do Paul's act, but change it around. Right? I saw Ari Spears take from people. I mean, it was just crazy. It was crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I met Aries a few times on Mad TV as well. And in Vegas, we made a few Vegas trips where Aries ended up coming out. I love his impressions. He's a great impressionist.
Oh, yeah. He took Steve Rizzo's joke, cartoon characters having sex, right? And of course, he'd act them out and, do all the voices, where Steve just basically would tell the jokes. And he took Steve's joke, and Steve confronted him. And Ari said, "You just mad because I do it better than you."
Are people still doing that? Has comedy evolved, or not? Maybe evolved is maybe not the right word, but has it changed since you were? Is it always evolving? Is it always changing, or is it going to kind of remain the same?
No, it's changed. I think one thing that has made me more popular, especially with the young kids, is the political correctness, and I don't do any of that. Right? I'm like to the other side. I even have a joke at the end where I say, cancel me and make me famous.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because
people are so afraid that they want to have a sitcom, they want to be canceled, so they're afraid to say anything. Where myself, I don't give a damn. I'll do a joke where I talk about, Jeff, are you afraid to get canceled? I'd be like, no, they've been trying to cancel black people since they brought us here.
Yeah.
And then do a whole historical timeline of how they've canceled everybody and did things to cancel black folks. So yeah, I don't care.
Right on. And it's true because it's refreshing when there's somebody like you, when there's somebody like Joey Diaz, who I was just thinking about that the other day, and I met Joey. We did a NFL for the NFL Network. We did some commercials for him. I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. And it's funny to think that, he'll say whatever and he's not afraid of being canceled. He's got his podcast. He sells out, or, now he's traveling. He's doing a tour with Bert Kreischer, I think, or at least doing a few nights. So that is amazing when you're able. I believe it's very freeing then that you're able to do that without worrying about canceling. If anything, like I said, it'll help you. Please cancel me, make me famous.
Yeah. No, Dick Gregory said it best. They asked Dick. They said, why did you start doing political comedy? He said, so I could sleep at night.
Was that him? Somebody had a brilliant joke about Minneapolis, and I just remember because maybe he lived there or he moved there, but then I can't even, I wouldn't do it justice, and I can't even remember it. But yeah, just another brilliant mind. What were your interactions like with Dick Gregory? Was he there when you were coming up?
No, Dick wasn't there, but I interviewed him by myself twice on the Pocho Hour of Power. And I said to him one time, I said, Dick, you wrote the book, The N-Word, right? And he's like, I didn't write the book, The N-Word. I wrote the book, nigga. And yes, you can say it. We're on radio. I was like, oh, damn. And so he said, look it, they gave me $250,000 to write a book, which is like $1 million back then, right, in the 60s. And he said they thought it was going to be a comedy book. I wrote it about my life. So they came back to me and said, we got to have that $250,000 back. He said, you can't give a black man $250,000 and think he's still going to have it. So you're going to release the book, and not only going to release it, you're going to call it nigga, because white folks like to say it in private so that they can say it in public. I was like,
damn. Brilliant. And you interviewed him twice for the Pocho Hour of Power?
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Who are some of the other luminaries that you've interviewed for Pocho or been there when they were in the studio? I mean, the people you mentioned already are incredible. Is there anyone that has stood out or that you really enjoyed a meeting on the Pocho Hour of Power?
I tell you, the emotions were great. We had a guy on from the Circle Jerks. I forget his name, but he was amazing. Ron Isley was amazing from the Isley Brothers.
From the Isley Brothers? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny because when you interview all those guys from the 60s and 70s, they have the same story. They were doing a talent show and a talent scout song. Right? So they're like, yeah, we did this talent show. The next day we're in the studio playing backup for so-and-so. Ray Parker Jr. interviewed him. And he was talking about how when he was playing with Stevie Wonder. And then he quit because, Steve likes to keep his people forever because Steve likes to be the main dude. So, yeah, Ray was great. Yeah, those are some of the people that were like just awesome, man. They just, Then they all have great stories, right? They all came from poverty and they loved the art, and that's what they did.
Wow, amazing. Is it true? Was Ray Charles really blind?
All right. And this is not a setup, people. So this is the story my father says. So my father was on tour with another group, and they were in Seattle, and the drummer, anybody knows Ray was very hard on people. So the drummer was tired of it. So he tells my dad, look it, why don't we switch? I'm tired of Ray. Ray won't know because he's blind. And so my dad like, okay. and so they switch. And about a month later, my dad's like, Ray, I got to get paid, man. I've been with you for about a month. He goes, no, Bobby, I know you've been with us for about a month. And I like your playing, so I didn't say nothing. So my dad's like, okay. So he's watching Ray. And he goes, you know what? I think Ray running game. I think Ray can see. So my dad was the guy that would put the mics out. So he says, okay, I'm going to put this mic out. Ray going to walk out. He going to walk around it. And I'm like, bam, gotcha. I knew you could see. So he sets it all up for the show, sitting at the drums. Ray walks out, busts his head on the mic. He yells at my father, "Bobby, you're fired." And my dad's like, "But Ray, I thought you could see." So yeah, Ray's blind. Ray was blind.
Ray is blind. Okay, all right. Just I just wanted to clarify that. That's such a great story. I love that. So that is wonderful. So you're touring again. I mean, or at least I see you doing a lot of stand up. What brought you back, or were you always doing it and I just didn't know about it, or is it your social media that's letting people know that you're out there now?
Yeah, I was doing it, but my material wasn't at the level that it is now. Right? Like I said, after Paul died, I went back and just had to, like, when I say, they've been trying to cancel black people since they brought us here, that would be a Paul Mooney joke. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? And some guy told me the other day when I got off stage, he says, "You know what I love about you? You remind me of Mooney, but you're not doing Mooney."
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. No, of course. There is this essence of Mooney, but you're not parodying him. You're not copying him. You're Jeffrey Keller, and you're brilliant at it. But there is that essence. There's, but how could it not be? I mean, he's such, like you said, a lot of people were influenced by him, more some than others, or more influenced than others. But yeah, I think that really much encapsulates you have that essence, and it's brilliant.
Yeah. And we were friends, right? Like we would hang out, and, when you watch somebody do 2.5 hours of comedy a night, like I used to try to get Paul all the time, right? And when he'd come into the store, I try to, like one time I saw him on the Hugh Hefner show, right? In black and white. It was, the show was in black. It was a Playboy After Dark.
Yes. Yeah. I think I saw Dick Gregory on that show.
Yes.
In black and white. I mean, because I know, yes. I think he was on the show. Yeah, of course.
And Paul was one of the dancers.
What?
So I see him. So I'm like, I got him. He ain't able to get out of this one. I got him. So I said, "Hey, Paul, I'm not saying you old, but I saw you dancing on Playboy After Dark, the Hugh Hefner show." And he looked at me and said, "That's right, homie. It was me and the other brother, and I got all the coochie."
Oh, yeah.
So evidently, Richard used to perform on there, and Barbie Benton loved Paul, so she'd ask Paul to stay and dance on the show, and that's how it all went down.
Was he doing? So was he not doing comedy then? I mean, was this one of his early, just first work gigs, and then he got into comedy, or do you know his story? I mean, this is about you, but it just crossed my mind.
Yeah, no, he. I think Richard was dating Paul's sister, and so Paul was hanging out with Richard. Now, when Paul first started doing jokes, I believe he was like a ringmaster type guy. He wasn't doing serious material. It was more corny stuff.
Sure.
Right. And I believe he used to play an instrument or something on stage. Somebody was telling me.
This has to be a movie. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I think that I don't know if anyone's done it, but I mean, it's easy for me to go like, "You're a writer, Jeff. You should write it." But what a great movie that would be, the Paul Mooney story. I mean,
I'm sure one day they're going to do that. But yeah, so yeah, no, I feel like he's on my shoulder sometimes, because my whole thing is I just don't want to let him down. So that's on the back of my brain when I'm writing all the time now. That's what's driving me.
Are you bringing notes up on stage?
Now, homie, remember, it's spiritual.
It's spiritual. Oh my God! That's so
it was crazy. And I should have said this earlier, was the way I got reacquainted with my father was I was doing stand-up at the World Stage. And I used to do this joke about my father telling me a bedtime story as a heroin addict. Right? Like one of the jokes was like, Jeff, if a heroin addict get bit by a spider, does the spider get high? Because I was walking and saw some beautiful jazz notes in this web, and I started playing. I was like, that spider's a bad man. And some guy came to me afterwards. It's like, is that true about your dad? I said, not well, kind of. I ain't seen him since I was 2. He said, what's his name? I said, Bobby Pittman. He goes, he just played in here last week. And so I gave him my card and said, hey, if he ever comes back. And about a month later, I got a call, said, hey, your dad's here. He wants to meet you.
Wow.
What are the chances? What are the odds?
Yeah. And then that's how you guys reconnected.
Yeah, because see, my real last name is Pittman, but my mom put me to school under Keller. So when he was looking for us, he's looking for Jeffrey Pittman, not Jeffrey Keller.
Got it. And there's a lot of Jeffrey Kellers out there that are not black.
Yeah, man.
I almost used some doctor's photo for you.
That'd have been hilarious. That would have been funny.
So, yeah, I didn't know if I should or not. So I figured I would use yours, which is funny. So, you know what? Let me just take a second to thank everyone that's in the audience. Folks, if you're joining us live, thank you so much. Jocelyn, Dave, Kurt, Deborah, Sam, Bad Bunny there. Who else? Is it Ulrich and Woody? Thank you guys so much for being here. For those of you that are catching the live stream either on Twitch or YouTube or Facebook, thank you for joining us. Or if you're rewatching this and it's just audio, there is video available. If you go over to, if you just look for Paul Vato Presents, and you can find us there. Go to paulvato.com and all the links are there. But if you want to follow Jeff, which I think you should, Jeff, would you mind giving out your social media, which is both Instagram and Twitter? Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and it's My Mom's White. Now, for the white people listen, it's not My Mom is White. It's My Mom's White.
Okay, I got it right. Okay, My Mom's White. Yeah, My Mom's White. Right. Because they're going to go like, my mother is white. And it's not going to get you there. So,
it's funny because when I get off stage, I've done all this political race material, and people go, so what's your IG? I'm like, My Mom's White, and they'll start laughing. And I'm like, no, for real. I'm like, no, that's my IG.
That's brilliant. They're like, that's not what we asked. Your IG. Yeah, My Mom's White. What? I'm fine. We get it. Fine.
No, that's awesome though, man.
What a storied life. What a great life. And I can see where, a lot of your comedy comes from. So maybe let's move up, because I left when I moved to Vegas in 2009, but maybe even before then, I stopped doing the Pocho Hour of Power. Most importantly, are you guys still using my theme song? Are you still using the theme song that I'm in where I go, let's do this?
Man, let me tell you something. I love that, but Gary Bach had changed it. He's a whole different one now. And it's not as creative, and it's not as fun, and it's not as brilliant.
Wow. Well, because Esteban Zul, it was like, hey, little homie. He was like doing all the voices, and I was like, let's do this. Yeah. I loved it. I'm gonna have to maybe I'll have to use it here, but or at least debut it here because I thought it was a great intro song, and I just love the fact that years later they were still using it. Times change, things got to change. How did you end up connecting with Lalo Alcaraz and Esteban and Patrick? I would imagine maybe Dave Carter was maybe there at the beginning.
Yeah. So what happened? Zul saw me doing stand up. And it went back when the what was that dude? The Australian guy, shark. What was his name? They ended up dying.
Crocodile Hunter.
The crocodile hunter. And
Yeah.
I said, how did he not think that he wasn't going to get shot? I mean, he was in the shark's hood, you know. Stingray saw him and did a swim by, you know. Boom, what up, fool? Stingray.
Yeah. Steve Irwin, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Steve Irwin. Yeah.
Steve Irwin.
So the Stingray did a sting by. Yeah. So swim by.
That's brilliant. I love it.
So he saw that, invited me on the show to be a guest a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was hanging out with him and Lalo at some party, and Lalo was like, "Yeah, I want you to be on the show." I said, "No, I like doing the show." He goes, "No, we want you to be like a regular, because what's his name's leaving." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And that's how it started.
Wonderful. I love it. Yeah, I love it. I guess you're an honorary Pocho.
Yeah, and see, they didn't even know my background, with like my cousins and my aunt and uncle, so they didn't even know that. And Baldwin Park, so they didn't even know that whole background.
You're basically Mexican.
Yeah, I got a whole Mexican. I got a whole Cholo side of my family. Believe me, they was hardcore. They was hardcore. Yeah.
Orale. You should grow out your mustache, and
you gotta have your head up, right? You gotta have the head up, like Orale Holmes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You gotta have all that. You gotta dance like with your thumb, your finger,
I'm your puppet.
Come on, little puppet.
Let's go, little puppet.
Come on,
El Cholo. Wonderful, man. That is amazing. If I don't know how you're doing on time. I mean, would you be willing to take some questions from the audience, or would you like to meet some of the people that are here, either fans or followers or friends? How's your evening going? Or
I'm good. I have a show at 8, and it's not that far, so I'll take some questions. Yeah.
Wonderful. So if anybody would like to come up, by all means, please put your hand up, and we'll bring you up, and you can be on video if you'd like, or not be on video. That is totally up to you. In the meantime, where are you performing tonight, in case anyone is in LA and they want to come and catch your show? Or what do you have that's coming up?
Yeah, tonight I'll be at the Wren Theater in Hollywood. We're doing an 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock show. And then in the future, just so people know, this summer, they're going to have Keller at midnight. And so I'm going to do a political show at midnight at the theater. I'll have 2 comics and then myself. And it's going to be all politics at midnight.
That's brilliant. Wow. Wonderful. Yes. Yeah. Give it up. Yeah, please, everybody hit the applause. Let's take a little applause break for Mr. Jeffrey Keller. Thank you guys so much for being here. We love it. Did you ever perform at, is it called the Comedy Union?
Comedy Union? Oh, that was, what's his name?
Ence Mitchell.
Ence Mitchell, yeah.
Because I've known Ence since the 80s, because he was always in comedy. He used to manage a club in Aurora, Illinois. And when I first got into comedy, just watching comedy and stand-up, he has been there since the beginning. So one day I'd like to just chat with you about him, and I'd like to reconnect with him. I'm going to hit him up on Instagram, because he was like instrumental in just my appreciation of comedy. And I'm sure his history is long and varied. So
yeah, Ence was great. Every time before I would do a comic view on BET, I'd work it out over at Ence Club. Yeah.
Wonderful. Do you also know my friend Samson Crouppen?
No, I don't know Samson.
Okay, I'll have to introduce you, because I used to do a show with him. But let's welcome to the stage a fellow comedian, stand-up, Jocelyn. How are you, Jocelyn? Thank you for being here. If you have any questions for Jeffrey, or if you'd just like to meet him, he's right here.
I know Jeffrey. And I was like excited I literally was just looking at my phone, and I just saw Paul Vato, Jeffrey Keller, and I was like, that can't be my friend Jeffrey Keller. And then sure enough, I popped in here, and sure enough, here he is. I think we're friends. I say we're friends.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Jeffrey, would you like me to remove her from stage? Is this just a rabid fan? That's
Jeffrey and I met organically in real life, just on the scene. We do a show. We've done shows together for this guy called Baca, which is kind of just like I I don't know. How would you describe his shows, Jeff? If you had
A hole in the wall.
I mean, for whatever it is, he's definitely well intended, right? He has a venue, it's a free mic, it's an opportunity to perform, but I don't think he completely understands like what it is to produce an actual comedy show, but it's fine. We're all friends there. Like, we have fun. And my first time hosting for Baca, I actually had Jeffrey headline for me, and he came through after a long day at Dodger Stadium, and we had a lot of fun. And my friend Keenan Floyd came out too, and no, Jeff is just really good vibes, and I was just excited and happy to see him on Fireside. So yeah, how are you, Jeff? And you said the Red Theater in LA or in Hollywood?
The Wren, yeah, WREN, yeah.
Oh, WREN. Okay, cool. I actually have a show tonight too. It's a new spot in Melrose. Mm-hmm. It goes by Yaman Comedy Lounge. I don't know. It's interesting. It's new. But a couple weeks ago when I first did the show, Slink Johnson came by, who I didn't know who that was. He's Black Jesus, in case you guys are familiar with that whole. So he came by. And again, I just feel kind of silly because, like, Jeff came by, or I met Jeff to know who he was and heard him, and he was hilarious, and Slink Johnson. So I know I like playing this, like, baby comedian role because then I'm just learning who everyone is and just really enjoying being friends with them and being funny with them. So, yeah. So I'm just here to, I guess, fangirl a little bit for you, Paul.
Oh,
and
you're
Jeff.
hilarious.
We'll take whatever we can get.
I'm not even joking. Every time Jeff says I'm hilarious, like, it literally just like makes like my heart flutter. I'm like, yay, Jeff thinks I'm hilarious. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool because I'm pretty hard on comedians. Like, my friends, if they write something or they're doing a play, they want me to come see it because they know I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'll be like, no, that's horrible. Or
no, that's what you need your cutthroat friends to tell you what's funny or not. You don't need people to, like, I guess what's the word, gaslight you or something. But,
gas you up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would never do that, but Jeff, I I did really enjoy your sitcom that you were gracious enough to allow me to read. Have you done anything with that yet, or what's going on with it? Because I would love to be involved in any way possible because it is such a great script, I think.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is my manager thought that would be great for a second episode.
Okay.
And so right now I'm writing the pilot.
Oh, okay.
So I'm almost done with the pilot. And so I'll give that to him. And yeah, we should be good at that point.
Wonderful. I love it. I would love to read it as well because I really enjoyed the one that you allowed me to read. So thank you for that.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah. What do you have coming up? Do you have any besides the Keller at Midnight? Is there any? Are you touring anywhere, or is it mostly all in LA?
Mostly in LA. I'll start shooting a movie in June. It's called Stranded. It's about a day with Suge Knight. And I play the stripper's father in a wheelchair that doesn't know that she's a stripper.
Okay. All right. Right.
So the cool part is...
sometimes makes me laugh so hard.
So the cool part is he let me write my lines, which was awesome. And so we just got $15 million to shoot it. So we're going to shoot in Atlanta, Vegas, and LA. So
well, you got to let me know when you come to Vegas, so I can at least come by and say hi. I'll drop by the set.
Oh, definitely. All of a sudden, it's like, how did Vato get in the movie?
I pull up in another wheelchair. I'm his war buddy. Like he came with a freaking wheelchair.
Paul, if I come in my wheelchair, do I get on the set too? Do I get in a movie?
Yes,
hey, Paul, you know who I'm going to be working with, how to work the wheelchair is D'Angelo.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So I'm going to work with D'Angelo on that. I already asked him. He said, yeah, he'll work with me on it. So
Well, if you need someone else, Deborah
I was
here.
going to say my kids will
Deborah,
help you too. I mean, my kids, you steal my wheelchair kind of. If I'm not in my wheelchair, they're racing with my wheelchair. So they're really good at teach it too. I mean, just saying. And I'm not a comedian, by the way. Obviously, I'm going to say obviously, but I'm not a comedian. I'm just coming up to support Paul and you all up here. So, Jocelyn, you may be a baby comedian. I'm not a comedian, although people will think funny, which is really odd for me. But I was just coming up to say hi. But I love the comments with the wheelchair because I think that's kind of funny because, I chase after people with my chair. So, and this was great today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And Jeff, thank you so much for taking time from your busy day and your schedule and popping into Fireside. And I really hope that we can see more of you, not just as a guest, because I'm sure a lot of people will hit you up, to be a guest on their shows. But if you want to create something here, and I'd be more than happy to, do something with you. It would be an honor and a pleasure. But if you need any kind of guidance, or even before you get accepted as a creator, let me know if you want to put something up, because I'd be more than happy to help that. I've been trying to tell Lalo about it and whatnot. I mean, I think it's a great way to record a podcast and then it lives here on the platform and you can download it and re-upload it. It's all about repurposing evergreen material. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you, but he can barely do our show, So.
I remember it was always like, okay, you guys started, I'll be right there. And the second the show started, he'd be running in. Yeah, SMT, Standard Mexican Time.
Yeah. Well, now he just does it through Zoom, right? It's just I'm in the theater, I'm in the studio, Zoo's in the studio, and he does it through Zoom.
Is this what I caught you on Facebook Live during that one day, Jeff?
No, that was something else. We're on 90.7 FM, KPFK, on the radio.
Are you late for your Zoom meeting? Because somebody just asked me this the other day, how they're still managing to be late for their Zoom meetings. So, Paul, I love your timing because we do the same thing. We do Jewish Standard Time. We do all these other standard times. So I love the Mexican Standard Time. But are you late, Jeffrey, for your Zoom meetings and presentations? I just had, since you're talking about the Zoom ones.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of anal about that stuff. So I'm usually pretty much on time. And if I'm not going to be there, I tell people, right? I'll be like, hey, I ain't going to get there till 11 or, yeah.
Is that, this is horrible. Is that your white half that fucking up for the rest of us?
Yes, it is. Actually, the funny part was my mom, I didn't even know she was white till I was about 8. That's the craziness.
Oh, wow.
Because she would cook saltwater cornbread, grits, all that stuff. And, all we had in the house was black people, right? So I just thought she was light-skinned. I didn't know she was white until my birthday party. And this kid was like, you guys are rich. And I'm like, why you say that? He goes, because you have a white maid, because my mom was cleaning up. And I'm like, and so I was like, I said, who? Would you point at my mom? I'm like, well, I said, we're not rich. I don't think she knows she's white. So let's don't say nothing.
You're like, oh, yeah. That's the maid. It's so funny. You would talk about maids, because I remember being in Mexico when we were growing up on vacation, and they asked my mom, because all my father's, family, they're pretty well off, and I remember, but even if you're not that super wealthy, they all have maids. It's probably the same, in the Philippines or anywhere else where it might cost you $100 a month to have somebody come and do all the work or whatever it was. So they asked my mom, what's your maid's name? And my mom goes, oh, I don't have a maid. She goes, and the little girls just started bawling and crying. And they were like, what do you like, Pablo? Uncle Pablo doesn't get you a maid? Why don't you have a maid? Like, you have to do all the work yourself. And they were bawling. My little cousins were just crying and bawling because they couldn't fathom that my mom wouldn't have a maid. So
wow,
that just reminded me of that.
Yeah, when we lived in the Hollywood Hills and that, we had a maid. Her name was Aurelia, and she's this black lady, and she was tough. And I was kind of hard-headed as a kid. And so if I didn't want to eat my greens, I wasn't going to eat them. And she'd make me sit there till midnight, literally midnight, 5 hours. That's how. Yeah. and then I'd feed them to my dog when she wasn't looking.
Jesus. Oh my
Yeah.
God. What was that story that I remember you telling? I think, was it Damon Wayans? Something about a cell phone, maybe when you were parking cars. Was it?
Oh man, yeah. So I'm parking cars at the Comedy Store, and then Damon was just rude to me, right? He like just threw me the keys and was just being a jerk. And so he goes, park my car. And I'm like, dude, what's the attitude? And so I parked the car, and back then they had the cell phone in the car, right?
Sure.
So I got on the phone in his car and called this girl that I knew. And we talked for about an hour. So about a month later, I hear Damon talking to another comedian. It's like, yo, my wife made me sleep on the couch. And he's like, why? He goes, because there's this girl's number on my phone. And I kept telling my wife, I don't know that number, and I don't know that girl. I'm like, karma, baby. Karma.
How are you spell karma? With a K? Not with a C? C-A-R? Karma. That is funny. I remember because when my first cell phone, late 80s, in the car, of course they were attached to the car. You couldn't take them with you. Back in my day, you couldn't travel with your cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had, I've been blessed, man. I've been around a lot of greatness, right? I mean, I had dated a girl that sang with Stevie Wonder, that was engaged with Steve. I got to hang out with Steve for a while. I mean, I've been blessed to be around people who are at the top of their game.
You must have some stories with just meeting all these people and celebrities and whatnot. So I would love it if you could come back, and I hope time that you would come back and join us, and maybe we can do a part 2 because I don't want you to be late to your gig. So I don't know how much more time you have, but so thank you.
No, thank you, man. Thank me. I don't take anything lightly. Whether if it was a Tonight Show, Paul, it's all the same to me. You got to treat everybody the same, man. So I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate people taking their time out of their day to join us for this interview. So thank you, guys.
Wonderful. Do you have any final thoughts, or is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with? Because we've been going an hour, and again, I appreciate your time. So do you have anything that you would like to leave the audience with, or like I said, final thoughts, or and maybe let us know, again, where people can find you on social media.
Yeah, again, you can find me, My Mom's White, on Instagram, Twitter. What I always tell people, like when I get done with my comedy act, and it's pretty racial, and I'm like, well, if you're white and you laughed, that's because I'm not talking about you. But if you didn't laugh,
Exactly.
So, hug somebody, make somebody smile. You never know what they're going through, people.
That's amazing, Jeffrey. Yeah. Everyone has a cross to bear, and so thank you for those wonderful, wise words. Jocelyn, joining us up here, and everyone that's in the audience, thank you guys so much for popping in. It's been a pleasure. And again, Jeffrey, I would love to continue this conversation another time if you could make it back. I would love to have you on, or maybe you can join us as if you have time to do some of your shows on here on Fireside. We welcome you with open arms. So thank you so much, bud.
All right. Thank you, brother. Have a great weekend.
You got it, my friend. Break a leg tonight. Have an amazing show. And everyone, if you're in LA, please follow Jeffrey and listen to him on KPFK. So thank you. A round of applause for Jeff. Thank you guys so much.
Ese hombre holding up the bottle. Look a little closer, cigar and Moscato. An actor in improv coming from Chicago. Outdoor, make way for Paul Vato.